So shall we start?
See, in the previous talk about Dhruva, we looked at some of the northern part of the sky. And the northern part of the sky, which I showed, and also to some extent Sundar yesterday showed, was the Shishumara constellation. Then all of you know about the Saptarṣi, which is supposed to be there. And presently, of course, the present Dhruva is Polaris, or what is called Alpha Ursa Minor. These are the major constellations and the stars which are there. Now, about Saptarṣi yesterday I was mentioning, we identified with Ursa Major, no doubt. And the names of the Saptarshis, because the star names are very important. We are now prone to use the modern names, like it's called the Big Bear, and then in some of the places you would see that in Śatapatha Brahmāṇa it used to be called ṛkṣa in olden days. The Saptarshis were called ṛkṣa previously, and then became the stars and all that. Actually, the word ṛkṣa means in Sanskrit both a bear as well as Nakṣatra, a star. Ṛkṣa is used in both the sense, That is, ṛkṣa is the animal and also a star. Maybe in a very ancient time these were used in that sense. That is possible. But the names of the Saptarshis, how it was given, in the Vedic context, it is only Atri, Bhrigu, Kutsa and all that. There are the 7 names which are there. And those 7 names are same as the Gotra Pravartakas, as you would say. In the Ashwalayana Sutra it is there. Somewhere I have given in my notes, it will be there. And Agastya Ashtamanam Gotrapatyam, it says. The 7 rishis and Agastya, the 8th. So it is not just the Saptarshis. Agastya is also included. And if all the Vedic people or the people who have allegiance to the Vedas, the Hindus, they are supposed to be the apatyam of these 8. That means these rishis were the original rishis in the Saraswati river, somewhere in that Brahmavarta we have to take it. So that means these were all rishis also. Later on they became stars, you can say, or their name was given to the stars. That comes up in the Taittiriya Aranyaka very clearly. Saptatrischayat Agastya Shankrite Nakṣatre Shankrite Avasan. That also I have given in my notes, somewhere it is there. So that means Taittiriya Aranyaka recognizes that these rishis, the 7 rishis and Agastya, they are in the sky as Nakṣatras. That is one aspect. For us, they are the names which are there. So when we talk about Agasthyodaya and all that somebody was asking, we have to identify that star and then do that. That is the canopus. We will come to that later. But these are the stars which are not along the ecliptic. These are special stars which are outside. The ecliptic is in which sun and moon go round. Yesterday I showed you one, Shishu Kridantav, that mantra is coming. So the two, the sun and moon, they keep on going round and round, one after another, in the ecliptic circle, nearly the ecliptic, let us say, not exactly that, in that band. Now, the fixing of these, the position of these sun and moon, how do we do that is the next question. And that in the most ancient time was referred with reference to the stars, what we call today Nakṣatra. So these Nakṣatras are, if you want the technical description, they are the asterisms or group of stars along the ecliptic, or in an ecliptic band, you can say that. This you have to keep in mind, because when we say somebody is in a particular place, I have to say that so and so belongs to Bangalore, so and so belongs to Delhi, or something like that. Some background is needed. That background has to be a fixed background. That cannot be changed. The person can travel from Bangalore to Delhi, that is different. But his position has to be said. So that is something like today we call a coordinate. In geometry and others we use the coordinates. So that coordinates, later on, today it has become the longitudes, the ecliptic longitude. And that longitude also, you have to have a starting point. Now, if you are in a planar thing like in India, it doesn't matter. Say Jammu, Kashmir, then you can say to Kanyakumari or something like that. But if you take the whole globe, which is the starting point? From where to where somebody is going. So he starts from India and then goes around, then comes back to the same point. Or Columbus and others they start somewhere, they again come back to the same point. So the starting point is arbitrary. You can start anywhere because it is a circle, so long you know that you are coming to the same point. So you have to know that for yourself. But if there are several people, they can have their own way of doing things, They can have, this is my country, this is my best country, this is the center of the earth, they can say. In fact, there are such things. Many people, many cultures claim that this is the center of the earth kind of thing. Now, why I said this was, all this had been thought about, and already in Mahāsalayalam and other texts, these are discussed, how it has to be standardized. Today the standard is the intersection of the ecliptic and the celestial equator. That is the equinoctial point, because it cuts. That point is the 0 point. One disadvantage of that is, in time that keeps on changing. So you have to say in which era or from which 0 you are doing. That is what is in some of the software they would have put JD 2000 or something like that. So the era of 2000 would mean when equinox staying at year 2000, the other positions are given. So if you go back 1000 years or 2000 years, you will get from that equinoctial point, which belong to that point, and that is how the modern information is available. Now, in the Vedic period, or also in the later period, what was the 0 point, or what was the origin? There was no concept of 0, so to say, but the starting point, let me say. They selected some nakṣatra and said this nakṣatra will be the beginning, Adi, and from there we count. So they needed a count to cover the whole of the ecliptic or the circle. How did they do that? How did they come to all those things, such conclusions? They would easily do that. You start at today, I know this is Kṛttikā, and moon is there. I keep on watching moon. Simple thing, every night I keep on watching. Once again he comes back to Kṛttikā. And after how many days he comes back? 27, maybe 28. 27 may be very near, maybe 28, maybe he has already crossed. But Kṛttikā as a starting point, if you keep it, you will clearly know he has again come back to that point. Now, the concept of either 27 or 28, the origin is that you start seeing moon, maybe you start with a pūrṇimā. Pūrṇimā will be easy to do, because amāvāsyā you can't see. So, near Kṛttikā, pūrṇimā I start. I keep on watching every day, because if you start from pūrṇimā, moon decreases. That is the Krishna paksha. But in the Krishna paksha, every night you will be able to see moon. Whereas in the Shukla paksha, it is not so. Because Shukla Paksha, sometimes even in the morning, the moon's orb you would have seen in the west and all that. So there can be some confusion there. But in the Krishna Paksha, there is no confusion. But it won't happen at the same time. So in the evening, if I see the pūrṇimā rising, full moon in the east, tomorrow when I see, moon will not rise at the same time, even by your clock. It will be roughly 1 muhurta late. Say about 50 minutes, or you can say 1 hour approximately late. And then it will be a smaller one. Then you see the next day, still 1 hour late for the previous day, and then it will be still smaller. This keeps on going like this. And another interesting thing would be, when moon comes back again to Kṛttikā near, is not full moon. You started with a full moon, you catch a moon, no doubt, but it is not full moon. So this has to be borne in mind. So there are 2 cycles for moon. Now, on the other hand, suppose you say, no, I want to do an experiment. I will start with a full moon. I will watch only full moon when he comes back. That you can do. The same way you keep on doing, and you will see that crossed Kṛttikā on the 27th day or the 28th day, then 29th day it could be almost a Chaturdashi or a big moon you are going to see. Then pūrṇimā will happen maybe on the 30th, or might have already happened on the 29th. Actually, the full moon will happen in between the two, 29 and 30. That means if you start with a full moon and rising in the evening, you will see the full moon not in the evening but in the morning. So half day extra or half day less would have happened. So there are 2 cycles. One is the 27 to 28, which of course later on we know it is 27 and 1/3, even the Vedic period. The second cycle is 29 to 30, or average 29 and a half. So neither of these are integers. So in the ancient period they took some people 27, some people 28. Initially it was 28, at least as per the text we see. So they were having 28 Nakṣatras, or the stars, to represent moon. So I hope you understand now. Now, for representing moon, you need the Nakṣatra. For representing full moon, you don't need anything. If you are counting only full moon to full moon, you don't need the Nakṣatra. It is only the moon rise. Wherever he rises, I don't care. Why I should take Kṛttikā? I will start from somewhere else. And I don't know even the Nakṣatra. I simply know it is full moon. So I can come back and say it is 29 and a half. Again it is the full moon. That is called the synodic period. Later on it was called the Māsa. But in the Vedic period, they were looking at the pakṣa. As I said, the 15 was the more important thing. Why go to 29 and a half and 30? First find out full moon and when he vanishes. Does he vanish on the 14th day or on the 15th day? That is the amāvāsyā. So if you start with the full moon, on the 15th it is amāvāsyā. So amāvāsyā was called pañcadaśī. So pañcadaśī was amāvāsyā. Now somebody would say, look, okay, today is pañcadaśī. Let me see when again full moon happens. You count 1, 2, 3, 4, again 15. So pūrṇimā was also called pañcadaśī. So in the Taittiriya Brahmana and other texts, if you see, both are called pañcadaśī. So in the context you have to understand that. So that counting, pakṣa counting, doesn't need Nakṣatra in the beginning itself. Nakṣatra they got for some reason, they would have known it, but they saw the 2 cycles. One is, I start with the Kṛttikā, then I come back, is it 27 or 28? That is one question. The other one is 29.5 is the other question. These 2 are the key for the calendar making. So some people would say, okay, I will stay with only the nakshatra because I have to count. And today our calendar is going to be a yearly calendar. But in the most ancient time, maybe they initially had only a paksha was sufficient for them. And they would know the next paksha has started, Krishna Shukla, Krishna Shukla. A month was sufficient. But slowly they found that won't take them further because food has to be grown. Food depends on sun. That is, the agriculture depends on sun. That because of the rains they would have known. But if you can know when the rains come, when summer starts, when there is winter, it is going to be helpful because that is forecasting. So human beings always wanted to know their future. Today, you would like to know so much of things when Iran war ends and all that. But in the more ancient time, it was something else. That is the season they wanted to know. So the seasons, everybody knows when it is hot, when it is cold. You don't need any special thing for that. Seasons were socially felt. That is the social determination of the seasons. So if you see in the Vedas, in some places they say 5 ṛtus, pañcadaśī they would say. Even the Sayana Bhasha in many places says only 5 ṛtu. Some places they combine Hemanta and Shishira as one and then say 5 ṛtus. In some other places, in one of the Brahmanas, even 7 ṛtus are mentioned. Because they added one extra month because of the intercalation. And then, that was called a 7th ṛtu. Whereas slowly they came to the conclusion, 6 is sufficient. 6 is necessary also. And there were the names which were given initially. The Madhu Madhava, Shukra Shuchi, they are the names which are given. Madhu Madhava was the Vasanta ṛtu. Then the Grishma, it goes like, then the Sharat, Varsha, then the Sharat, then, the Hemanta, then the Shishira. There are the 6 ṛtus which are there. I have given all the details in the notes, you will have to see that. Now, the next development is going to be, okay, sun and moon are there. Now, how I am going to do what MDS was mentioning as intercalation. Intercalation is the two have to come together, the two countings, so that my calendar for the whole year is reasonably good. Why the whole year? I have to know when the rains start. I have to know when the summer happens and all that. I hope you follow this. If you keep only the moon, what happens? Every year you lose 12 days with reference to the solar year. So with 12 days, if you lose, within 5 years you have lost 2 months. One season is gone. You start with the Varsha ṛtu. After 5 years you see that is not happening there. Varsha is not happening. Something else has come in. And this is preserved in the Śatapatha Brahmana. I think I have given in the notes something on that. There is a story on that. So most of things are remembered as akhyanas. The ṛtus went away from the gods. So it says like that, all the seasons went away from the gods, or the devas. Then devasura sanyata asan, devas and asuras were together with the Prajapati. And asuras were doing very well. Even before the devas could till their land, they were already harvesting. They were already, because the crops had come and they were harvesting. So the devas is in the Śatapatha Brahmana, is a very long one. So that is why I am not giving it here. So devas were surprised. How is it that they are already tilling, and even before the rains come, they are already harvesting? That means they were irrigating also, perhaps. So that is, agriculture was something of that kind. Now, some people have interpreted these asuras were actually the Harappans who were dark in color, and so they knew already agriculture, irrigation and all that. So the Aryan savages who came from outside Anatolia and other places, that is how they have. I don't think so. It doesn't mean like that at all. The Prajapati, Devasura Sahita, he was equal to both. He didn't discriminate between asuras and devas. Prajapati is generally used what we today call creator or Brahman in those days. Just keep it in that sense. So he was the originator for both Deva and Asura. So this is a very important concept. Many people think it is ethnical and ethnical things are there and all that. That is not true. Devanam Danavanancha Samanyam Adidaivatam. That is from the Rigveda Khila. That is what is called the Jitanta Stotra, some of you may be knowing. It is from the Rigveda Khila. So that was the thing which was there. It's the same. They were born to the same Prajapati. Even in the Puranas it comes like that. Anyway, I will not go into that. So there are a group of people who are more intelligent or who are working with their hand, and they would know what is happening. Whereas the others were theoreticians or whatever, they are simply sitting in the home and thinking that food will come to them, like the devas or whatever. Anyway, then the devas, Prajapati says, you understand Ritu, you do the Ritus into the Yajnas, include Ritus into the Yajnas, you will also thrive. So then the Ritu Swaha and the Ritu Yajya was introduced. And this is not a simple statement actually. If you see it in the scientific perspective, originally it was not there, later on it is there, and Ritu Patra, Ritu Graha, Ritu Yajya and Ritu Yaji, these are all the common words in the Brahmana text. So the people who were doing the Darshapurnamasa Yaji were one group, Ritu Yajis were other groups, Chaturmasa Yajis were other groups. So they would want to find out the year. They were all after sun. That means to fix the seasons correctly, they were either doing the Darshapurna, or they were doing the Rituyaga, or they were doing the Chaturmasya. So scientifically they are all together. It's all combined. You want to find out the length of the year, or you want to follow sun, you want to follow moon. All these details are available there. Why I am mentioning this? If you are going to look into the Brahmana text and the Vedic text from this perspective, you have enormous information. But if you look at it only from the Yajnika angle, or what is the Bhashya which is given, and also the translations of the Westerners and even the Hindi translation of our own Pandits, it just doesn't get anything. You think our Rishis should have been perhaps very dumb and very stupid and doing simply these kind of things. It is not that. And this comes out in yaga called the Gavamayana. Now, Gavamayana has been discussed and threadbare discussed by so many people, and Pingri and those people, they have written, I think their livelihood has been out of these kind of things, because they have been writing on those things. And that Gavamayana is actually, they say, the cow's foot, the travel of the cow. It is actually the travel of sun. It is simulated with that. So that Gauha is the light which is coming. Okay, we will not go into that. There may be similarities there. And that was to fix the ayanas. Ayana, as you see, the word itself is there. That is from north to south, south to north. So they have to watch the sun, they have to watch the moon, with reference to what they did. Some of them would say, okay, physical objects. Some of them would be taking the Nakṣatras. So that is why the Nakṣatras are so important. So let me quickly go through this. But for the Nakṣatras, the motivation was the season. And that was the motivation for even intercalation. And the important thing, the helpful thing, was moon has 2 cycles, whereas sun had only 1 cycle. Moon had these 2 kind of thing which repeats. Now, which do you call Rita? Both are Rita. Whereas ṛtu is the word which comes from Vṛddha, which is the rhythm. Ṛtu or Vṛddha initially was only the rhythm. So there can be several rhythms. It is not only this, daily sunrise is also a rhythm. Now moon's thing is also a rhythm, month to month, and Nakṣatra Masa to Nakṣatra Masa. Ayana is also a rhythm. These things come up in Mahāsalilam very clearly. How many ṛtus are there? Is it 6 or 300 ṛtus or 12 ṛtus? Those questions are also coming up there. In other words, there is a very lively intellectual discussion in the form of difference of opinion. Discussion is not difference of opinion. You finally come to a conclusion also. Now slowly that conclusion has come, and we should not mistake the conclusion for the original discussions which have happened. Then only we understand the origin of pre-Siddhantic astronomy. Okay. The Nakṣatra name, you are all familiar with it. Today, we use almost anything as a Nakṣatra. Apart from the other Vedas, Yajurveda, even in Rig Veda, the word Nakṣatra is used. There are several of them are also mentioned. For example, Magha is mentioned. Then Phalguni is mentioned as Arjuni. Arjuni was the original name for Phalguni. You know that Arjuna is called Phalguna. Why? Because he was born in that Nakṣatra. So he's called both Arjuna as well as Phalguni. And both the names are there for the Nakṣatra also. We use that as Paryaya Pada today. So it was called the Arjuni. Now, yesterday I mentioned about the Surya Vivaha. It happened in the Arjuni actually. Then Tishya is there, the Nakṣatra. Revati is mentioned. Could be it was a Nakṣatra or something else, we don't know. Because the tradition gives different meanings for these words. Because Sanskrit is polysemy, you can have different meanings for the same word. So Revati would mean bright. Anything can be bright. So Revati is also the name of persons. Beings can also take their names like that. So you have to, only from the context you have to identify whether it is a celestial or not. Whereas when you come to the Vedas, this becomes very clear. But before the Nakṣatras, I mentioned about the seasons. Yesterday somebody asked me about Sharad Ritu and Agastya and all that. So that is a Nakṣatra. But before that, Sharad Ritu, how was it identified? Now, there was no way to do that. It was only a social way of doing things, and something which was extraordinarily happening in the sky, they could identify. That means if it is very hot, they would know it is Grishma. If it is raining, you would call it Varsha. But the difference of the 6 was identifiable by group discussion. And that comes up in the Taittiriya Aranyaka, very well mentioned. Rutu Rutuna Nudyamanaha Shukla Krishnau cha Shashtikau. Okay, Vasanto Vasubhisaha Samvatsara Savituhu Smrta Yeta Vachaha Prayujyante Yatra Etad Upadrishyate Yetadeva Vijaniyat Pramanam Kala Paryaye Visheshananto Vakshyamaha, it says. So he says, you people are talking, oh, it is Vasantarutu, Vasantarutu. Yeah, it is Vasantarutu. That means you are happy with madhu and happiness, fruits are there, birds are there, and all that. That is Vasantarutu. That is what he says. Yeta vacha prayujyante. So you can read the translation and notes later on. And he also mentions something more. Shuklavasa Rudraganaha Grishmena avartate saha. Grishma, along with it, Rudragana comes. Rudragana are the Maruts. Actually, it is a meteorite shower. I have not come up to the concept of meteorites and comets in the Rig Veda, but Rudragana, if you see, people who may be knowing, Maruts are Rudraha Rudrasunamaha. That is the mantra which comes. So the Maruts were Gana, they were Guru. Maruta is Vayu, that is wind. Marut is not wind. Today, it has been mixed up the words. So Marut Gana, there are either 49 or 63 or 108, and there are fantastic descriptions of the group of this, and there are all the Rudras, even in Bahuvachana. It is not simple. And Sahasrasho Drishyante, it says in some other place. And it also says Smaryate Nacha Drishyate. That means these are remembered, but today I can't see them. But this Rudra Gana can be seen in the Grishma. Even today you can see the meteoritic showers, in June, in summertime. But anyway, this is how it comes. And when it comes to Varsha, Varshabir Dadata Saha Adukko Dukka Chakshuriva Tadma Pita Iva Drishyate. This is for the Ayurvedic people. So in the Varsha Rutu, the eyes become yellow. Tadma, it becomes Pita Iva Drishyate. It looks yellow. That is the, that's right, the Kamala, or what you say, Kamila in Sanskrit. It becomes like that. And then, Shitena Avyayatan Iva, Akshidukko Titasyaiva, Viprasanne Kaninike, Ankte Rabunan Tanibotata, Kanaka Bani Vasamsi, Annamashnita Ahamvo Jivana Prada, Eta Vacha Prajyante, Sharad Yatra Upayujyate. So when the Sharat has come, people would say, look, your eyes are looking very bright, and food is coming up, everything is clean, so they will be talking like that. So in other words, what I want to say, you can go through it, takes time. The Ṛtus were identified as socially by these things, except for two. One was the Rudragana, and again in Tavanto Marudganaha, Abiduvanto Abhignantaiva, Amuto Jaitum, Ishumukhamiva. They are like the arrows. Sannaddasaha dadrshe, Viśākhā kapardinaha. Viśākhā kapardinaha is the Rudras. The children of Rudra are the Viśākhā kapardinaha. They all have something like this, Akruddasya Yotsyamanasya. That is the Hemanta Ruti. So Hemanta, the other one comes, roughly 6-month interval. Today what we will call the alpha taurids and the beta taurids, At 6-month interval they are happening. That they are the children actually offsprings of Kṛttikā. That is another story, but I will not go into that right now. Okay, so already it's nearing 10:45. The Nakṣatras are needed, as I said, either 27 or 28 by observation. The first place in the Veda, fully it comes in the Atharva Veda. So in the Atharva Veda, it is in Nakṣatrani, there are 28 are mentioned here. But something interesting is here also. It also says, Bhanur Ashlesha Ayanam Maghāme. Ashlesha is there, after that Magha comes, Ayana. Ayana is also in that point. And totally there are 28 Nakṣatras. Now, for Nakṣatra, the other words which are used in the Rigveda is actually Stru. Stru appears in many places, that is actually star. You can take it as a single star. Even Surya is called Stru in some places, bright and like that. Stru may be originally meant it is only swimming, because from Stru came Tara, and then from Taraka. Tarayate, even today they say Samsaram, Tarayati, you say that, you carry over kind of thing, because they are all carried over in the sky, in the primordial sea, or the Salila, for which we have to see, come to the Mahasalila again. But till then, it is some kind of water or whatever, the celestial waters in which it is all traveling. Now, in the Taittiriya texts, all the Taittiriya texts have descriptions of the Nakṣatras in very great detail. Now, S.B. Dikshit's book, which I had referred in the beginning, he gives the tables also for all of this. Some places it is confusing. He says sometimes 28, sometimes 27. He also tries to give the numbers and all that. That can be confusing. Somebody has to standardize it. We have all the data today available, at least for the most ancient period. we have done for our work a standardization. And Nakṣatranam esham upastha soma ahitaha. This is again from Rigveda, the Surya Vivaha Sukta. So if you take Soma as moon, he is near the Nakṣatra. So it is clearly an observational thing. The important thing that you have to remember here is the order is same even to this day. You start with any Nakṣatra, the ordering. Ashwini, Bharani, Kṛttikā, Rohini, Mrigashira. Whereas in the Mahasalyalam time, it was different. It's a Kṛttikā, Rohini, like that it will start and end with Bharani, then Kṛttikā. It did not start with Ashwini. So we have to be careful with these things. Today's sequence is that. This becomes a chronological thing. It is a circle, all right. For some particular purpose, the Nakṣatra positions were being shifted. One of that yesterday Sundar showed. As the seasons change, the Nakṣatra which you can observe there changes, but very slow. Each Nakṣatra maybe take about 1,000 years to shift to the at that point to come to the next point. So it is very slow, but still it does. Now, slowly when you read all these things, you get a feeling that they definitely worshipped the Nakṣatras, or they held Nakṣatras in very great awe and respect. Reason being, deva grihāvai nakṣatrāni. This comes up in the Yajurveda. They already thought they are the deva griha. So deva griha has led to so many different interpretations. But for our purpose, we will just take it like that. Who are these devas? There may be imaginary beings there, or you take it as a force, which is with this Nakṣatra, because they can induce some effect on others. We will take it in that sense. Now, for all the Nakṣatras, there are also devatas, which are, I just now was mentioning. The devatas are also given in the Yajurveda text. But there are differences. The difference also we have to somehow sort it out. That may take quite some time. If you are entering the field for the first time, you will get totally confused. So you can't believe anything. See, for example, you say that for Ashwini, the Devata Ashwini, today you would say like that. For Rohini, you will say Prajapati is the Devata. But their Rohini may be approximately same as today's Rohini, but their concept of Rohini was different. And that concept of Prajapati was different. And hence, the Rohini Chandra legend, if it has to be understood, is not actually Chandra. Today we call it as Chandra in the Purana. It is the Rohini Soma or the Rohini Prajapati legend in the Vedas. That has to be seen from their perspective. Further, the Devatas and those things will be helpful, but you have to organize them. In other words, the effect of chronology of Rigveda is older, Yajurveda comes later, or Taittiriya Brahmana is later. This you have to have in your mind. Otherwise, it becomes contradictory. Something is here, whereas I see in that text, it is something else is given. For example, for Jyeshta, who is the Devata today? You remember who is the Jyeshta? Indra. Indra is the, in the Mahabharata and those places also it comes. Indra Daivatam. So Indra Daivatam is there, but people have taken it as Jyeshta. Anyway, we'll take it as Jyeshta. But here if you see, there can be differences. I think it can't show this. Okay. Yeah. See, Vishnur Devata for Shrona Nakṣatram, then Vasavo Devata, Śatapatha, Indro Devata for Śatapatha Nakṣatram. Proshtapada Nakṣatram, Aja Ekapad Devata. So Indra is the Devata for Śatapatha. This is from the Taittiriya Samhita, which I have taken. So, and this kind of changes happen, but if you remember, Kalabhimani Indraha, you get an answer. Because some kind of Kala they might have fixed up near that Nakṣatra. But what is Śatapatha Nakṣatra? Today there are 100 Nakṣatras are shown as Śatapatha. But if you see the count, Ekam, Śatapatha, Vande Nakṣatra, you say Eka Nakṣatra. So you have to be careful with these things. That's all what I am trying to say. You can't change that. Now, we say that we call the Nakṣatras Ashwini. They didn't call it Ashwini. They called it Ashvayuk. Ashvayuk is different from Ashwini. Ashvayujav Nakṣatram Ashvinau Devata. Ashvinau, dual, or the Devata, right? It's a Dvidaivatya. But it is Ashvayuk, the original thing. And then Ashvayujav. Ashvayuk means it is the steeple that you are holding, that with which you connect, that yoke. That is the Ashvayuk. It is with Ashva, no doubt. It looks like that. That is how it has to be taken. And here it is, of course, Dvivachana. So may expect it has to be 2 stars. But later on you would say Ashwini will be 3 stars in some places. How they are listed. Okay, now let me go further. All this, how is it connected with sun? Because for the seasons only we wanted this. Otherwise you would have been happy with moon. And mistaking moon Ritu as also the Ritus for growing food, which would not happen. Now, there is an important thing here. You can have a calendar of that. Like the Islamic calendar doesn't recognize this, It's only lunar. So that is why, the Ramzan keeps on changing every year. You will be wondering, the sound was more in August last year. This year somehow, it is happening in December kind of. That is because of this. So once in about 32.3 years, it again repeats. The cycle happens on its own. The sun and the moon will coincide. If you can wait for about 30 years for the seasons. Now, Surya is important because there are mantras which says, Yat punyam nakshatram tat bhat kurvita upavyusham. The people who are the Yajurvedians, some of you may be knowing this. Is the Punya Nakṣatra is what? In the Upavyusham, we have to fix it. Upavyusha is the twilight period. Ushas is the morning, early morning. Upavyusham is still there is dark, still some light is coming up. That is what you know. Yada vai Surya udayati, when Surya may be coming up. Atha nakshatram naiti, he has brought a nakshatra. Yavati tatra suryo gachet. I have given the translation. Let me not read this. It is also a bhashya, how it has to be done and all that. What it says is, in the early morning, you see a nakshatra in the twilight period. You fix that nakshatra as the Punya Nakṣatra. Like maybe you are seeing, here I am showing Rohini. This is Rohini, Aldebaran, the original Rohini. Don't look at this triangle. That is the later Rohini with the 5 Nakṣatras. This is the original Rohini. Rohini has come up. It is still Upavyusha. There is some light. And this is east. You mark this and understand how much time is left for sun to come up such that this vanishes. You understand? That is the mantra which says that. And Bhattavaskara says you can make some marks also. You keep a chinha somewhere, maybe a pole you can put or something, so that when sun rises fully, that nakshatra has vanished. And what is this, why it is called Punya Nakṣatra, it's called Punyaha. In that time you finish all your work. Whatever work you wanted to do, you have to do in that time. And this is actually today what has come down as Brahmi Muhurta. See, Brahmi Muhurta, you know, it is about 1.5 hours before sunrise. So let us say 6 o'clock is sunrise, somewhere around 4:30 or so, 4 to 4:30 or even earlier. Some people in some latitudes, they would say 3 is the Brahmi Muhurta, 3 a.m. is the Brahmi Muhurta. In North I have heard this, 3 a.m. is the Brahmi. Could be. So because in that period you can do whatever you want, all that will succeed. That was the kind of feeling they had, you know. The whole concept changes. This is called the heliacal rising. I'm stressing this point because in many of the books you would see, even to some extent even in Dikshit's book, Nakṣatras were called lunar mansions. That is where moon stays, the house. Then for sun, some hand waving is done. No, the Hindus did not know the solar zodiac. It was borrowed from the Greeks. Then the reason is, I have to blame to some extent our astrology thing which has developed in the last few hundred years, because the Rashi system and my Nakṣatra is as per this, whereas in the newspaper which is put, this sun signs as per that, and he would also give another as per the moon sign. 2 of the things with the Bhavishya is given, you know, Vara Bhavishya and all that. So these confusions and all that, people would say, look, these people did not know. So it is only this sun thing that we are following in Europe. They would have borrowed it from there. That is roughly, it is the Rashi system entered somewhere around 300 AD. Whether it came from there or whatever, that is another matter. The concept of dividing from the equinox, 30 degrees, and 12 into 30 is 360, was later. It is not in the Rig Veda. It is not in the Vedic period. And for that, you don't need the Nakṣatras. The important thing is you start with the equinox. It is only sun. So when the day and night are equal, it comes up in the Puranas, I will show that, important for chronology. The day and night are equal, that is the Vishwa. And you keep on doing similarly 30 degrees, or instead of 30 degrees, you take 30 days. If you can manage that, by seeing only sun or whatever 30-day count and all that, you better do that. But normal people will not do that. Because moon is clear in the night, and you know, for cultural things, for social things, normal human being will be after moon. I mean, it's natural. And moon cycle affects us much more. Sun also does. After all, finally, moon cycle is same as sun cycle. There is no difference in that. But all this comes only as a derivative thing, you know. So as a feeling, these are important. No, but for the Vedic people, because this is something which has been preserved for us. Why it has been preserved? They thought it has to be orally transmitted for 5,000 years, and it has become the intangible tradition. Whether you know the meaning or not, it is preserved as a tape recorder. Because it is scientific for them. It was something very important for their progeny to know. And that had to be continued for infinite future or whatever they might have had. So the cultural tradition, they wanted to keep it intact. All the things have they kept? We don't know. Unimportant things might have gone out. And there is a natural selection when in all these things. Whatever is very important, the society will retain. Apart from political influences and invasion by others and all that, remaining things will go away slowly. That is a natural thing. Till this, today it has remained, so we have to look into that. That is the only argument for this. Now, if we see these stars in the morning, early morning, they are the Surya Nakṣatras, they are the solar Nakṣatras. And yesterday, Sundar already showed, each Nakṣatra, sun will stay for more than 13 days. Now, it's a very simple calculation. Well, Ayana to Ayana, you have counted 183 days using moon or directly sun. However you may do it, do it. 366 is going to be one full year. You call that year samvatsara, just a notation. Divide it by 27. Whether you see the nakshatra or not, you divide it by 27. And if you are intelligent and if you are a nakshatra darsha and you are a rishi and you are a person who wants to do something in a punyaha, you better see that nakshatra early morning. Get up early in the morning, 3 a.m. See that, fix up, finish all your job. You want to do maybe a upanayanam or a mantropadesha or grihapravesha or whatever you want to do. Finish in that. That concept continues to this day because the muhurta concept, muhurta is within quotes, shubha muhurta, auspicious muhurta concept is Vedic. It is not the later Palita Jyotiṣa. It is the Vedic Jyotiṣa. So Vedic Jyotiṣa is actually time. So that time, even today, they will do the Griha Pravesha early in the morning. You know that. I need not say that, you know. Early in the morning, before sunrise or at that time, they have to enter. All that has come from here. Okay, I think the coffee is come. Okay, I will finish with this. This is the Magha with 6 stars. Yesterday also it was shown. So this is the Punyaha Nakshatra. I have given the translation. Please read in your notes, it is there. And many other things started coming up with nakshatras. And this is where the night is important. Because you see the nakshatra in the night. Morning is okay, something all right. I understand you are a very intelligent man, you did that. But tell me in the night, what should I do? Should I not dance? Should I not sing? Should I not have art and all that? Yes, you should. So they decided there is a Nakshatriya Prajapati. So Nakshatriya Prajapati, how would you do? Say, Yovai Nakshatriyam Prajapatim Veda, Ubayorenam Lokayor Viduhu. If you know the Nakshatra Prajapati, you know both the lokas. You know the Bhuloka as well as the other loka. What is that? Hasta eva ase hastaha. His hand is the hasta. Chitra shiraha. Chitra nakshatra is the head. Nishtya hridayam. Nishtya is Swati. Nishtya is the hridayam. Swati nakshatra. Uru Viśākhā. Pratishta anuradhaha. Yeshavai nakshatriya prajapatihi. Okay. Then asmishcha amushmishcha. Yam kamayeta duhitaram priya syaditi. Tam nishtayam dadyat. You want to give your daughter in marriage, do it in Swati Nakshatra. It's already there in this, in the Taittiriya Brahmana. And Abhijit Nakshatram is mentioned next. It doesn't say for all the nakshatras some action, but Nishtya it is said. Swati is one of the best nakshatras even today. Swati Nakshatra, they do it. In some traditions, some other negative meanings are attached. I am not going into that. Here it is very clear. And these 5 are combined and made into a figure like this. This is a figure from book by Hole. He published, is an astronomer from Nagpur. He's a lawyer, basically, but he worked on the Vedāṅga Jyotiṣa of Lagada. And unfortunately, he claimed there is a metanic cycle there, 19-year cycle. 19-year cycle is not there. Anyway, that's another matter. But he was a very interesting person. He connected all this and he made into a figure as the Nakshatriya Prajapati. In other words, the sky had to be remembered in terms of these kind of figures, and it is the starting of art. And various things you would put. Nakshatra Mala, later on, if there is time, I will show you. And the names of the people were giving like that. Swati, somebody is named, Revati is named, Viśākhā is named. Even men would get such things, not only ladies. And independent of the how the nakshatras were there. In some traditions, they would say, you should not name them by the nakshatra name. In some traditions, they would say, no, you can name them by nakshatra name. Nakshatra became important because in the yajnas, the yajamana, it's not in his name he does it. He does the Agnishtoma or the Agni Pratishta in the name of his Gotra Pravartaka Rishi. And for that, he tells his name, and in terms of that, I'm sorry, it doesn't tell his name. In terms, his Nakṣatra, and in terms of that, he has to do the Sankalpa and all that for the Agni Pratishtha and all that, in the Yajna. If you read the text, you will get all of those details. Not by the given name, you can't do that. Grihya you may do it, but not in the other things. So let me just stop here for some time, have a cup of coffee, and then we'll come back.
But some of you are interested in seeing the manuscripts of Vṛddha Gārgīya Jyotiṣa and others. Can you raise your hands? Oh, it's everybody. Okay.
Now let me continue with what I was mentioning in the morning, because there is already we're a little bit late. I mentioned about the two cycles for moon. One is the sidereal, the other is the synodic. Now, how did they manage this? How did they do this? How did they handle in the Vedic period? Did they try to simulate the two, synchronize the two, is the question. And how is it connected with the year? Because everybody knows Vedic year is solar, whereas the months were lunar. That is how roughly it is known. Actually, there were no months in the Vedic period, like the present day months, like you have the Kṛttikā Masa, you have the Bhadrapada Masa, or in Tamil, you have the Adi Masam, Tai Masam. That kind of thing was not there. It was the pakṣas which were there, the ṛtus were there. The word Masa was there, but the month as such with these names were not there. They came up only after about 1800 BC. That in fact, Dikshit has discussed in his text quite well. When people say Chaitri, Maghī, Ashadi, it means only the full moon near that star. So for the months, that was a problem. Do you have a Amanta month or a pūrṇimā month? You start with the pūrṇimā, then you have the pūrṇimā, starting with the pūrṇimā, the first pakṣa would be a Krishna pakṣa. Then the Shukla pakṣa comes. Whereas in the Amanta kind of system, you start with the Shukla pakṣa first and then go to the Krishna pakṣa. Now, even today, there is difference between some of the calendars of Himachal Pradesh as well as the South Indian things. There is that shift of one pakṣa in month. Month names remain same, but the Shukla and Krishna are gone out. So there is a 15-day difference. This we have to bear in mind because in the inscriptions, later inscriptions, there is not the before Common Era, after Common Era inscriptions. Synchronizing the inscriptions has been a problem, but epigraphists and others have done this work quite a bit. So people who are working on inscriptions and sources between the north and south, you have to be careful. Even in north, many people use the Amanta. Whereas I heard that, is there anybody from Himachal Pradesh? There was one person. Do you use Amanta or pūrṇimā there? In Himachal Pradesh? Pūrṇimā. Yeah, because I met 2 or 3 people in Himachal Pradesh. They showed me also. It was a pūrṇimā, in fact, That means it starts with the pūrṇimā, the month, name, month, with that particular nakṣatra where it is occurring in the more ancient period. Okay, now this is a synchronization issue. Anything? Okay. There is one Nakṣatreshti in Taittiriya Brahmana, and in many of the places this comes. Nakṣatreshti is done even now. And this Nakṣatreshti seems to have this concept that amāvāsyā, pūrṇimā are there, the nakṣatras are also rising, and somehow there is something between 29 and 27. It doesn't exactly say anything of that kind. But if you can follow that, I have put up in English and also I have given the details for you there. It talks about Rohini, Udagat. It's a very beautiful thing, like the Prajapate, Rohini, Vetu, Patni, Vishwarupa, Brihati, Chitra, Bhanuhu. It starts with Agnirnah Patu Kṛttikā. First nakshatra is Kṛttikā. With that it starts. Nakshatram Devam Indriyam. It goes like this. Too long, I can't read all of that. Pūrṇimā Udaga Chobamana Apyayanti Duritani Vishwa. This happens after the Viśākhā Nakṣatra. So now in the text, how it is followed, it is all mentioned. It starts with the amāvāsyā, the Kṛttikā amāvāsyā. The Nakṣatra is done even now. And the 15th day, roughly, pūrṇimā occurs. And then again at the end, another amāvāsyā occurs. But the Nakṣatras are only 27, so you may be going 2 days extra to meet the next amāvāsyā. Those numbers are not there, but the description in the Shravta Sutras, all the details are available. So if you see from your point of view, from the present point of view, this the difference between 27, 28, 29, 30, those things are there. So my feeling is they were trying to synchronize and see what may be the differences when this occurs. And Abhijit is mentioned. They dropped Abhijit later on. All those experiments they were doing in terms of these rituals, and they have recorded it, is my feeling about it. And it also gives the number of stars sometimes. For example, Chatasro Devir Ajara Shravishtaha. There are 4 Devis in the Shravishta. Te Yajñam Pantu Samvatsarinam Amritam Swasti. So maybe somewhere the year beginning was happening near the Shravishta Nakṣatra. Maybe that is the winter solstice later on, as we know. And winter solstice might have been there only. Which year, I cannot say with this exactly. And this continues. The number of ahutis which have to be given are also mentioned. And this is not simply ritualistic or some superstitious or something like that. It is connected with the Nakṣatras. For example, for Kṛttikā, there are 7 ahutis to be given, because there are 7 stars originally in the Kṛttikā, not 6. 6 later on, originally 7. And their names are there: Ambāyai Swaha, Dulayai Swaha. So Amba, Dula, Nitatni, Meghayanti, Chupanika, these were the names of that. These became the later Saptamatrakas. And Saptamatraka is a very important concept that started from the Kṛttikā. So Kṛttikā is very important. There is no doubt on that. And they all thought of the natal star of the Yajamana, of the Janma Nakṣatra, when they do the Nakṣatrashti. And the Janma Nakṣatra was there. Atha etasmai nakshatraya charum nirvapti. Etasmai means of the Yajamana. Yathatvam devanamasi yevamaham manushyanam bhuyasamiti. So it was for something they were doing, praying to the Nakṣatras, no doubt. As you are the head there of the Nakṣatra, his own particular Nakṣatra, let me be so with the people was the thing. And yata hava etad devanam yevam hava yesha manushyanam bhavati. So they go on like this, but there are differences. Maitraniya has Jyeshta Nakṣatram Varuno Devata, whereas later, as I said, Jyeshta Nakṣatram Indra, and Śatapatha was Indra. Here there are differences. Here Śatapatha is still Indra. Now, this may be connected with some other things, and also it is an important thing. There is Bahur Nakṣatram Rudro Devata. It is not Ardra Nakṣatram Rudro Devata, but Bahur Nakṣatram. So the shape of the stars, the Nakṣatras, were also coming in, because Kṛttikā, means something which cuts. It is like a eggs. I hope you understand, like a parachute. So it will be like that, and the shape is also like that. And it is used for cutting. So otherwise, why the 7 stars should be called Kṛttikā? So there is a group name is Kṛttikā. And the Devata name is also given Agni, that is astrological. We will come to it maybe in the afternoon or maybe tomorrow when we discuss Mahāsalila. And this slowly got standardized. In the Atharva Veda Parishishta, this I think was fixed somewhere around 300 BC, Atharva Veda Parishishta, because it contains dinara. Dinara is a foreign currency which was used in northwestern region, and dinar is even now in East Europe is used. So dinar was a gold coin. Dinara is mentioned there. In the second part. The first part is very ancient. Why I tell this is, Atha Nakṣatra Kalpam Vyakhyāsyāmaha. So the Nakṣatra, not only the Nakṣatreshti, different Vedic shakas, they had their own way of doing with the stars. Rigvedis would do something, Yajurvedis would do, Samavedis would do. They have their own Brahmanas, their own shakas, their own Shrauta Sutras. All this had developed already by about 500 BC, 1000 to 500 BC, they were all there. Enormous differences in these things. So the Atharva Veda has the Nakṣatra Kalpa. Not that others should not do, but those people developed this. This Nakṣatra Kalpa, Kṛttikā, Rohini, Mrigashira, Ardra, it gives these names of that. Magha, Phalguni, Phalgunyau, Hasta, etc. ends with Bharanyaha. That is the name of the Nakṣatras. And then same thing continues, Shat Kṛttikā, Eka Rohini, Tisro Mrigashira. Gives the numbers for this. How many have to be there? Eka Śatapatha, Chatasraha Proshtapadau. There are Proshtapadau, there are 2 Proshtapada, they are made out of 4 stars. Eka Revati, Dve Ashvayujau, Tisro Bharanyaha. It is Sankhya Parimitam Brahma. So the Brahma here is the big place, not the Parabrahman or whatever. Parabrahman also we can take. It is Sankhya Parimita, count, it is decided by this count. Now you can add all of them and see, we have a table, I will show you that. Not only that, these Nakṣatra, there was a Devata for all of this, but they also had the Rishis for them. Agnimeshya Kṛttikā, Rohini, Aru Rohini, Shveta, Yanam. So the different groups of Rishis were associated with this. Maybe they thought, like the Agastya and Saptarṣis are there, the other Rishis were there. Large number of Rishis were there. These were all identified as those Nakṣatra places for them. Maybe after their life they would go and stay there or whatever. So you can see that Vasishtaha, Kashyapa, Adityas, Chandrama, Brahmāṇo, Nakṣatreshu. These are all with the Nakṣatras. And you can say Gārgya Shravishta. Gārgyas are in Shravishta Nakṣatra. And Dakshayani Shatabishak. Vatsyāyanau Purve Proshtapade. Agastyav Uttare. Agastya Gotra people are in the Uttara kind of thing. Okay. Whether these are remembered or not is a different issue, because this is pretty late. Maybe because of the lot of political things happening, you know that 3000 BC, not only the Alexander's impact, later on the Shakas, Shaka and Hunas, came in around 100 BC. They devastated Avanti, Pataliputra, Saketa, that is Ayodhya. And that is in the Yuga Purāṇa. That Yuga Purāṇa is part and parcel of the Vṛddha Gārgīya Jyotiṣa as a manuscript today. That you can see later on, you can do with that. So there have been a lot of changes which have happened during that period. And hence, this may not be practiced, but the text is available. And this text was taken away in 19th century to Germany. And the 2 persons, Nägelin and one other person, They edited this Atharvaveda Parishishta because it contains astronomical and very special social information. So they edited it first. It is available on website anyway, you can search. After that it got printed in India with some changes, this and this. Atharvaveda Parishishta. That is what I am putting up here. And it also gives the devatas, Kṛttikā, Agni Devatya, Rohinyam, Prajapati, etc. I am showing this for a very special reason. And that reason comes up here. The same Parishishta gives Kṛttikā Rohini Madhye Paipalada Mantraha. The Atharva Shaka, there is one person from Kashmir somewhere sitting there. The Paipalada Shaka, okay. Paipalada Shaka is from Kashmir. Shaunaka is supposed to be from Orissa. Anyway, let us not go into details. There is a mantra of this word. Kṛttikā Rohini in between. Okay, you have 27, but in between there is one. What is that? Om yad rajanam shakadumam nakṣatrāni akriṇvata badraham asmai prachan tato rāṣtram ajayata. It is something for the country or something he is telling in between these two. What is that? Badraham astunah sayam badraham pratar astunah badraham asmabhyam tvam shakaduma sadakrino. It is a Shanti mantra. They are praying to somebody called Shakaduma. Does it have anything with the Shakas? I don't think so, but it is Shakaduma. Where is it? It is between the Kṛttikā and Rohini stars. Yono badraha makaraha sayam prataha ato diva. Even morning, even in the night, tasmai te nakṣatra raja shakaduma sadanamah. You are seen in the morning, you are seen in the night, you are seen in the evening, everywhere you are seen. Shakaduma, please help us. Yadahu shakadumam mahanakṣatranam pratamajam jyotihi agre. Tannah shatam shatim abhikrinoto raim chanaha sharvarim niyachat. Who is this Shakaduma? Nobody has investigated so far. It should be a nova or some bright object which is visible, maybe a comet or whatever it is. And it was between Kṛttikā and Rohini. Very clear. And there have been great people like Narlikar, who has written an article in Current Science that Hindus never recorded any comets or any nova, anything of that, whereas the Chinese recorded in the 10th century the Crab Nebula and all that, which was visible in the... Yeah, in the 10th century maybe the Indians did not do, but they did it in more ancient times. And should that not be considered? The reason is Sanskrit people have not looked into it. Because I don't blame Narlikar because I don't know whether he looked into all of these things. His paper is, I have nothing against him, please don't mistake me. Current Science paper is there, you can search and find out it. Sorry? Yeah, Jayant Narlikar, and I think it is co-authored with somebody from Bori Institute, Bhattaya or somebody, I don't remember, maybe, this is along with somebody he has worked. It is a very interesting paper, you please see that. You can easily get it, no difficulty. Well, I am not criticizing anyone, I am just mentioning this. But ABAP is clear that this is a celestial object. Now, in the Shakaduma word comes in Rigveda. And Shakaduma people have said it is the smoke due to burning of cow dung. Where it comes in 1.164. Shakamaham dhumam arat apashyam vishuvata paraha yeta arvarena. It is, I have given the details here, and the Sayana Bhashya is also there. And Ukshanam Prishnim Apachanta Viraha Tani Dharmani Prathamanyasan. These were the Dharmani Prathamanyasan, the very first things which happened. What was that? Ukshanam Prishnim Apachanta. Literal meaning, they cooked cow meat. Right? Uksha is the ox, it is the bull. This is the translation by Griffith and others. And that was the smell which was coming, Shakaduma, and that is supposed to be in Pravargya also. There is some smelling and all that is there. It is quite possible there may be a pratika of all of this, but this is celestial. Dhumam arat apashyam. Far away I saw that. And the Nakṣatra ṛtutā vichakṣate samvatsare vapate yekaha yesham. And vapate, okay, they will say it is, vapate is, hair cutting. And keshi, and they say, okay, there is something which is connected with hair cutting and all of that. Maybe, they may do as a ritual. But this is with the samvatsara, kala, and it's celestial. And the Shakaduma is the Nakṣatra Raja. And how can it be anything else? It is a natural phenomenon. And
there is a possibility by looking at this shloka and the previous slide as well, between Taurus, if you see now where Kṛttikā actually is a glowing kind of thing. We call it as an emission, a reflection nebula. That means that it is glowing with a huge cloud is there and behind which the stars are glowing. And if you actually take a photograph of where it is, there is a huge amount of the Milky Way cloud which is still present there. Now,
this has been investigated.
Now, where was it visible?
No, I know, but what I am trying to say is, the Swiss have been investigated from some other reason, not because of this. Because this have been translated into English, even the scientists, physicists and others who are working on nova, supernova, there is a supernova catalog today. Why worry about
only the 27 Nakṣatras? And in fact, Vahya and his students, when we discussed, Vahya, he was in TAFR, he was the professor, astrophysicist. He says that there are some supernova mentioning in this and all that, Well, there is a long story, I will not get into that. Because when I published my first paper, it was not on this, on the Kṛttikā as a nova and all that. Then British, the director of the Royal Observatory there by name Napier, he wrote me telling it could have been a comet instead of a nova as you are telling, because he gave some reasons for all of that. Could be. And he has a long theory on that, the Taurid comets, the original comet, and then breaking and all that. Very difficult to say. Very difficult to say what, was it a nova, or was it a comet, or did it break, or something else, or how did that Dhuma concept come. They all say even today there are blazes. Even when you see in the Kṛttikā, that galaxy, because of the hydrogen, presence of hydrogen, there is a lot of things which go on, as he was telling, which may be at some time which was so bright, they could see with the naked eye something like a flame or something happening. As a naked eye possibility in the 4th millennium BC was a possibility. That's what finally the conclusion is. But they have not taken these as references. That is the unfortunate thing. Because our people translated wrongly everything, when they translated or when they explained it. Only in the Yajnika perspective. Well, anyway, I will not go into that, So I just wanted to show this, and this is the Nakṣatra table which we have put up. It is there in your notes. And all the Nakṣatras, they are not single stars. As I showed previously, there are multiple stars. Some are single, some are 6. Maximum is 6. Other 1 to 6 are there. And the names are given based on their geometry, generally based on their geometry. The shape of that, they came to some conclusion, and that is the name given. Which were named after the geometry I have given in Mahasalam book. You have to read that. This is the same thing which I have taken, and there is Abhijit is also here as Aquila. Today it is called Aquila is for Shravana, so they have put it up. And because this has been removed, the reason why Abhijit was dropped, we will come to it maybe in another 10 minutes. The shape of this is what I call astrograph. Kṛttikā, It is a knife or a cleaver. Rohini is a Shakata. It's a 5 stars. But in the AVP it is only 1. That is the Vedic, it is only 1. So AVP roughly represents the older Vedic tradition. It retains that. Whereas Vṛddha Gārgīya, Parashara Tantra, there is the PT, which book is also with you. These two are almost same, except for minor differences. That may be copying error or maybe some difference of opinion. The last two, SK is Shardula Karnavadana, Buddhist. There are large number of similarities. Kṛttikā is 6 for all of the people. There is no problem with that. SCP is the Surya Chandra Pragnapti. There is the Jain text. So this belongs to something like 500, 300 BC. AVP, even though there may be later things, its tradition is very ancient. That is why it is different. These two belong to 1500 BC roughly, center of the second millennium BC. So there is a 1000-year difference between this and this. Buddha and Mahavira around 500 roughly you keep, whereas VGJ PT, the basic era, will be about 1500 BC. There may be other layers, that is an important thing. But broadly this is the situation, so the differences are there. Similarly for Jyeshta, in the book you can easily refer to that. Moola is also differences. Śatapatha is 100 in Surya Chandra Pragnapti, also in Varahamihira. And you can see that Varahamihira, Brihad Samhita, they have depended much on what was prevalent during that time. If the Jain influence was more, and they would have taken those numbers there, that is what is mentioned. So you can see the overlapping of these influences. These are social and cultural influences. Okay, the names are very interesting. See, this Proshtapada was the original one. Later on it became Bhadrapada. Proshtapada meaning is cow's foot. So the cow's foot is how it is given. And Proshtapada comes up even in the Rig Veda. Somebody was asking about Ashwamedha in the morning. I was discussing. That Ashwa, it says, Apade Goho Apashyam, it says. So I saw that in Apade Goho, the Shiraha Apashyam Apade Goho of that Ashwa. Now Apade Goho is what? It is the foot of the cow is the literal translation. Sarna says it is the Agni in the Vedi, in the Ahavaniya Kshetra, the Yagashala, that is called the cow's foot. Because the cows are brought initially into the Yagashala to purify. Okay, that is a cultural different thing. Cows are pure, okay, we all agree and we want that. But does it mean in the Rig Veda also, Apade Goho, I saw something in the sky to that? It could be Proshtapada, So in the Proshtapada, and Proshtapada is very important because, the devatas there, next one is going to be Ahir Budnya and all of that, That is something which is hiding and so many things. So the whole thing is, there is so much of codification, so much of, you may say, a storytelling, story within story, story related to another story kind of thing. That is what has come down to us. Okay, next, this is the important thing. And I have to finish the whole thing in another 30 minutes. Yeah. So far, there is no epoch. We are not talking of any epoch. We had one, the Dhruva, 2830 I showed, but for the Nakṣatra I could not say anything. Because this sun being with a Nakṣatra, ṛtus being known and all that, you remember that. That Dhruva was something in the north. It was not along the ecliptic, connected with sun and moon and all that, with which we are today connected so much. I don't think we are so much connected with the Dhruva. Whether Dhruva is there or not, our life goes on. Nobody bothers about it. But in the ancient time they did, not now. But this is very important because they had to fix the ṛtus. what did they do? That is again in the Maitrayani Aranyaka of the Taittiriya Samhita, Maitrayani Samhita, which is a Krishna Yajurveda. And there it says, yesterday I showed you about the Dhruvasya Prachalanam, that is the Shakayanya questions, Brihadrata question Shakayanya, why Dhruva is moving and all that. It is the same text, but another Adhyaya. That what I showed was the first Adhyaya. This is the second Adhyaya, the Prapataka as it is called. Here there are so many interesting things. He tries to define time. What is Kala? He defines. Yah kalam brahmetyupasita kalaha tasya atiduram apasarati ityevam hi aha. He says that Kala has to be worshipped as Brahma. If you do that, Kala goes away from you. You become Kalatita. So a concept had come of yoga and so many other things. What is time? I want to become independent of time. So many new things were happening. Connected with why Dhruva moved, why everything is transient. So the starting of Vedantic thinking, hardcore Vedantic thinking or Upanishadic thinking, started because of the movement of Dhruva. When is okay, to the 3rd millennium BC, you can clearly say that. At the same time, these things also happened. Annam va asya sarvasya yonihi. All this srishti, root cause is anna, food. Kalascha annasya. For anna, what is the root cause? Kala. Time is the thing, is the seasons for food growth and all of that. Surya yonihi kalasya. For Kala, who is the origin? It is Surya. Sun is the origin of time. And not only that, it says tasya etad rupam. For that rupa of the Kala is that nimisha dvadashatmakam vatsaram is the rupa. Nimeshadi, there are so many other things, Kala, Truti, Masa, Paksha, Ayana, Rutu, they are all the rupa of Kala. And not only that, etasya agneyam ardham varunam. For this samvatsara, half is agneya, hot. The other half is varuna. You can say half belongs to Agni, half belongs to Varuna. You want a Vedic way of dividing, that is what it is. And Maghādyam Shravishtārdham Agneyam. What is Agneyam? It starts with Maghādyam. It starts with Nakṣatra, Adi. And it goes up to half of Shravishta. This is Agneya. For this Samvatsara. Kramena, that is Krama in that order, from Magha to Shravishta. Utkramena, in the reverse order, Sarpadyam Shravishtardantam Saumya. Saumya is actually Varuna, same as that. Pleasant, cool. In the reverse order, from the beginning of Ashlesha to half of Shravishta. Shravishta Ardhantam. So the technical words are there, half, Anta. Because Ardha is not, for us it is a point, just divided. For them, Ardha may be the division which is there and the end of that. So it has to be, we also say the first, second, third. End of third, half of third also can be used, So in that sense it is technical. And it is in the reverse order. And this is actually the Dakshinayana and the Uttarayana. And this can be dated. And not only that, something more after this Brahmetyupasita. Dveva Brahmano Rupe Kalascha Akalascha. He is not satisfied, the Rishi, with this, telling all of this, defining Kala, telling when it started so that we can do some work and all that. Nakṣatra and all of that. Brahma has two rupas. One is Kala, the other is Akala. Because Kalam Brahmetyupasita, it was said. So now the Upasana has to explain. There are two rupas. One is, of course, we take the Kala, and what is definition? Ata yaha praga adityaha so akalo, akalaha. Who was before sun. Because Surya yonhi kalasya. So kala started with Suni. What was happening before that, you may ask? So that is akala. What is the meaning of that? Akala. That means kala means that is with kala. Kala vriddhi becomes kala. Grammatically, that belongs to kala is kala. Kala is what? Part, discretization, quanta, if you want another word. It is something which is divided. Whereas before Aditya, because only after Aditya Kala has come, what it should be, it is Akala. That is all what he says. So, okay, let us not go into all of that. The important thing is, Atha ya Adityadyaha Sakalaha Sakalaha. Once again repeated. Sakalasya va etad rupam yat samvatsaraha. Samvatsarat kalvimah prajayante. Samvatsareneha vaijata vivardante. Samvatsare pratyastam yanti. Tasmat samvatsaro vai prajapati kalaha. Samvatsara is prajapati and it is kala because people born, they grow, they die in samvatsara. They do in kala. This I am showing because of one important reason. The Rohini Prajapati legend, you have to remember Prajapati is Samvatsara. So before this, how did they fix Samvatsara? How did they do that? Here, of course, it is Maghādi. Why did it not say anything else? Because Kṛttikā is one of the things in the Yajurveda. These questions are important, at least you have to rise. Reason is, they had fixed up this solstice. They were looking for something fixed with sun. Is the Samvatsara. That is starting in the sun, because sun is the starting of Kala. Till that time they might have hunted with moon and all of that. Here it became pakka. This is the solar zodiac. Solar zodiac means which divides or which tracks path of sun with reference to something else. What was the something else here? It was the Magha and the half of Shravishta. They are Nakṣatras. The 27 Nakṣatras are already there, they know. Hence he is telling only those two. And he also says Dvadasha Atmakam Samvatsara. So the Samvatsara is 12 parts. So 27 divided by 12, you get 2 1/4. You should be happy that every Rashi has 2 1/4 Nakṣatra. And Amsha is 1/4. There are Navamsha, that is the 9 Amshas are there in one Rashi, would simply mean this. It has come from there. It is not the modern Rashi concept of the horoscope, but it is connected with that. This is the Ugama of that. That's what I can say. Making some joke there or what? Okay, all right. Now, this is what I said, the Nidana Sutra of the Samaveda. It divides the 366 by 27 and says each nakshatra, sun stays with each nakshatra for 13 and 5 by 9 days. That fraction is also mentioned in that sutra. You can take it for yourself. So this Maghādi, they becomes very interesting. In Mahasalalem again we will come into this. What you see here is this circle of the 27 nakshatras. Equal divisions of 27 nakshatras. No Abhijit. Even though there is a mark put here, there are no Abhijit here. And how do you divide into equal parts? You can geometrically do. Mentally it is each nakshatra is 13.5 days. How do you count it? Sunrise. If in the Magha Nakshatra sun rose, you wait for another 13 days, you go to the next nakshatra. Wait for another 13.5, you go to the next nakshatra. So how did they fix up these nakshatra counts and all that? Early morning, you do it, you get it. And if you exactly divide 27 and mark them in the same order, and if Maghādi is my starting point, not 0, day 1, 183 has to be half of Shravishta. Geometrically, in the figure I am showing. So Shravishtārdham is that, 183 days, there is no problem. But when did they do this? If that had to be done, I have to do some computer work. Without that computer work, it can't decide it. One way is I have to fix up these stars. Are these stars same as today? What I call Magha, that one of that is Regulus, that is universally fixed up. But Maghādi means what? It is a sector, because Ṛkṣa is said. How do I divide a Nakṣatra into half? It is the part, the sky part I am dividing. How did I do that? With reference to time here on earth. This is a very important concept which comes in the Parashara Tantra. Kala kshetriyoho samyam. There is a congruence between, it's a basic principle in the Vedas. Kala and kshetra, there is a similarity. Of course, we all know there is a space-time thing is always interconnected. But here, the kshetra is in the sky. Kala is for the human beings, So we know our time, knowing the kshetra division there, not on the earth. Kshetra, of course, can be a region, but this kshetra is the celestial kshetra. That is what he says, And hence 2¼ Nakṣatra means 1 month in time for the human beings. For in the sky, the kshetra is 2¼ Nakṣatra. So you should be able to know that. You should be able to see that, approximately fix it. There are no telescope or whatever. Only by eye measurements or some thread measurement, or maybe hold your finger like this. It's also there. How many hasta it was long and all that. Like that you have to fix it up and approximately you have to measure that. That is what it says. Now, for the time, I have given the paper. You can go through it easily. What we did was the following. You plot this, and lo behold, what happens is, Kṛttikā is here, Viśākhā is opposite. Everybody agrees they have to be opposite. But how opposite is that? Kṛttikā 1/4 division, because each is 4 divisions, exactly matches with Viśākhā 3/4. And the division. Star is also there, no doubt, Viśākhā, but it matches with 3/4. Now, 1/4 and 3/4 are new divisions of the sectors, which was not there in the Maitrayani Aranyaka. Maitrayani Aranyaka is Adya, Ardha. Now, where is 1/4 and 3/4? Yes, it is in the Purāṇa, Brahmāṇḍa Purāṇa. It's so, what you can say, perplexing when I went through this. Kṛttikānām yada Surya prathamamsha gato bhavet, Viśākhānām tatājñayah chaturtamshe nishākarah. Viśākhāyām yada Surya charate amsham tritiyakam, tada chandram vijaniyat Kṛttikā shirasi stitam. Not only that, Vishwantam vijaniyat evamahur maharshayah. Not just satisfied with that. Suryena vishvam vidyat. Kalam somena lakshayet. That is the shorter time you have to know from Soma, Chandra, within day time. Whereas Vishuva is the longer time, which happens in the Samvatsara. That you have to know from Surya. How? Samaratrihi ahaschaiva yada tad Vishuvad bhavet. When the night and day are same, you have either a clock or you have a shadow or you feel or whatever you want to do. All this are already developed in the winter solstice, summer solstice, being hot, being longer day, and all that was known. But they gave the 1/4 and 3/4 division for this. And if that is done, this is actually full moon, because this is 180 degrees away. Kṛttikā 1/4 and Viśākhā 3/4 in this circle, they are 180 degrees away. There is no other way. If sun is here, full moon has to happen there only, 180 degrees. There may be errors, because there is a least count error here. I will come to that. Because this is 1/4, 3-day error can be there. I don't deny that. So what we did was, but the full moon, equinoctial full moon, doesn't happen every year. It happens once in about 10 years. So in a century, you can have about 7 such things, equinoctial full moons. They are not very rare, but they are still not very frequent. Like full moon occurs every 1 month, 30 days. It is not like that. Near equinox has to happen. And fortunately, there are 2 equinoxes, so I can get more data. This is all data dependent. So for both the summer equinox, the winter spring equinox and autumn equinox, what we did was we simply plotted this in longitudes, constructed the bands of 3/4 Viśākhā and 1/4 Kṛttikā. These dots are all full moon, which Sundar will explain in the afternoon. There is a software, thousands of years we searched for the full moon position, which happens only near the equinox. And then we have to fix up Kṛttikā and Viśākhā. Kṛttikā and Viśākhā, fortunately, even today they are the same. People can identify Kṛttikā, people can identify Viśākhā because it is the division which happens there. And they are almost single Nakṣatras. They are not broad. Sector is broad, but the Nakṣatra is very sharp. So what happens for one happens for the others also. So from precision, if I plot the longitude, when this pūrṇimā can be occurring near this, it is like solving simultaneously near Viśākhā and near Kṛttikā. And then the equinox is also happening. It can happen only from about 2000 BC to about 1600 BC. It's a fairly broad region, but still smaller. If I take only one Nakṣatra, it can be very large. The errors can become large, going up to 2000 years or so. Whereas here, we have been able to restrain it to about 400 years. So in this 400-year band only this was possible, and hence our argument is this Maghādi, which says of the Maitrayani Aranika, should be the center point you take. You don't want 2000, take 1800. 1800 BC is the epoch of the Maghādi, when this was also happening here. The Kṛttikā 1/4, the spring equinox. Now, this is in the Puranas, repeated in Vishnu Purāṇa, repeated wrongly in the later Puranas, totally forgotten in the still later Puranas. So in the Brahmāṇḍa, Vishnu it is there, Vayu also it is there, slight differences, but this is pakka. Like the 3339 in the Brahmāṇḍa, with errors in the others, this is also pakka. So this Purana statement also belongs to the same period. Observation. This is how we can date it. So Mahasalilam also starts with Magha. Later you can see that, and hence that also the lower bound will be 1600 BC. It has to be earlier than 1600 BC. That's what MDS was also telling. And Lagada's Vedāṅga, it starts with Shravishtadi, not Shravishtarda, winter solstice. So Shravishtadi will be half change, about 300 years would have happened. And that he demonstrated in terms of that turning clock. So, okay, this is the Maghādi era. Now, okay, I will take another 10 minutes and finish the next one. No? If you have any questions, please do ask. Maybe I'm a little bit fast here and there. Okay, use a mic, madam. Take this.
Now it is called as Purva Bhadra and Uttara Bhadra. Is it anyway connected to the Bhadra Padamasa? In our Matha, they perform the Kroštapadi where they...
It is connected with the Bhadra Padamasa.
Bhagavata chanting will happen and Pravachana.
Yeah. You know, you are talking of the Tamil influence. You are from Tamil Nadu?
Dvaita influence. Dvaita
Matha, sir. Dvaita Matha, Madhva Matha.
ಯಾವ ಮಠನಾದರೂ ಆಗಲಿ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. Tamil influence or what you are mentioning?
I don't know. I live in Chennai. There
தமிழ்ல என்ன சொல்றாங்க அந்த மாசத்துக்கு?
I don't know about the Tamil month.
Purattaṣi. That is actually a tadbhava of Kroštapada.
Okay.
No, true, it is there.
But the Bhagavata which they are chanting or doing upanyasas, why it should be done on that month? Or is there any science behind this?
There will be, but you have to ask them, who started it. Because, some of these are like this. A Ramayana Parayana is done in the Karnataka when it's starting in Kerala and some places. Similarly, Chaitra, so many things are there. There are meanings for this, definitely, but they are all connected with ṛtus, ṛtus, with the seasons they are connected here. Not so much with the masa. But later on, we don't think about the ṛtu at all nowadays, Because the temperature has come, we know the temperature and then decide. We have other ways of doing things. So hence, month has become important. It is easy also. Whether the month and the seasons match, they don't. That is the trouble, if you want to compare with this. But there is a reason for that. That means errors may be happening. It is human to make errors. But the reason is there. Some logic is there. Nine.
Sir, you mentioned about nova or supernova. Like one of the rock painting is found. Yeah. Sir, you mentioned about nova or supernova. Reference in Rig Veda and dated around 4000 BC. One of the rock painting might be, you heard, found in Srinagar in Kashmir nearby Burj, that is Neolithic site, and that is dated around 4000 to 6000 between. And there is a rock painting where two suns are painted by the Neolithic people. And Western people published some papers, and they are claiming that is the supernova, which is recorded.
You are talking about the Kashmir, that cave relief, which Vahya has investigated, and he has published also on that. Yeah, it could be, there have been comets and others before this period. Even after this period, it happens. Even during the period also it happens. The issue is whether we have records of that. Now, whoever may be the tribal people or those people, they might have observed and painted something. We know that that's happening. But here we are looking at a tradition which is textual, as a oral tradition and as a cultural tradition which has come up. So there is difference between the two, culturally and socially. Information-wise, it may be same, but dating them is difficult. How do you date them? There are some dates I know, but you can't easily date them. You do carbon-14 for something if that is available there. Otherwise, you give some guesswork. Here also say that is what was happening, like linguistic datings and all that. But when these kinds of data are available, we can be more, not the day, up to the day I can't come, obvious. Up to the year also I can't come. But I can give some century band. Starting or not? Okay. Yeah, in this I wanted to talk about really what is Vedāṅga. From the Vedic Jyotiṣa, slowly is this Vedāṅga Jyotiṣa developed. That Vedāṅga Jyotiṣa developed because of this concept of Nakṣatras, observing with sun, observing with moon, the sidereal month and the synodic month, etc. This I will quickly finish because we can go to the next date also in the same way we are doing, and the details are there. What you have to understand is how it has been done and what is the relative chronology in the lecture. Slowly you can read at home the papers because they are technical and they are scientific, and so you have to get into it seriously if you want to know that. So I have already said this. It is thought that they did not have a solar zodiac. At least the two-part solar zodiac I showed they had in the Maitreya period. Now I will show they had a six-part solar zodiac. The six-part solar zodiac comes up in the Parashara Tantra and also in the Vṛddha Gārgīya Jyotiṣa. How I showed one figure here. One second. Yeah. You can slowly read your notes which are given. Here it is, in the notes, and the figures are also there. It was the fixed point was needed. I have been telling that from the beginning. What was the origin? Now, you can say the Magha was the origin, But it's a very sophisticated thing because it's in the sky. But they could have had an origin on the earth also, because it is the solstice. Sun seems to stand still at that point. Like, in Stonehenge, they say they put some stones and it was going constant like that. Vāhyā and his group also have worked with dolmens and rock art in the ancient period where the sunset could be seen and all that. Could be. They would have had geometrical, local things like a hill or a tree or some building or some corner or a river, whatever they might have had. At the same point, sun rises every day for about a week or 10 days. That is the solstice. From the ground, they have gone to the top to see the nakṣatra, early morning nakṣatra. So these things you have to ponder and think about it. That itself would have taken some 500 years or 1,000 years. So the ayana, they would have been falling even before. Even you can say the tribal people or whoever they may be, they would have been doing that. Sun going this way, sun going the other way, then folklores would have developed. It's all exactly correct. But the sophistication, the intellectual thing comes up when you see the sky and this can be connected. Now in the Vedic culture, it is something is in the DNA. So it is already there because Dyauh Pita Prithvi Mata. So they would always be worried about connecting these two. So that is how the Magha came up. The next thing would be very easy. If you follow, this is the solstice picture, if you follow the sun in the, this is going to be the Dakshinayana, summer solstice and going up. This is the Vishuvā, which is here. And this is the winter solstice, how sun goes each day. And then slowly the rising point keeps on shifting. And I already mentioned about the masa cycle and the sidereal cycle of the two, which are interacting. That means if you take 2 months, it will neither be 59, it will be neither 60 nor 62 or 61. It will be something around 59 or so it will be coming. That is why 29.5 comes up. And also this number of stars along the ecliptic, 27 nakṣatras, but about 82 or 83 stars are used. That is because you have 27 and 1/3 is the time taken. 1/3 they could not have observed because it is already morning. Even if you start in the night, 1/3 will be already morning. You can't observe that. So after 3 rounds, they would see even in the night it is coming to the same point. So they might have divided like that. That means 82 stars would have been covered, roughly 27 into 3. And that is why they might have selected 82 or 83 stars. There is controversy. There are 82, 83, 84, 86, 80. There are so many such things are there. So that means it is again a nascent area where the observations were done. And the moon, this is the plot of that moon, You start with something, you come back to the same nakṣatra, but the shape is different. That's what I was trying to show here. Observing moon is actually more difficult. This diagram here shows that. See, this is sun. This is earth. Moon is a satellite around earth like this. Now, earth and moon, they go around sun. So when it's on the same side, that is, earth is in the center, we know that this could be a pūrṇimā or something of that kind. You can see the nakṣatra there. So the Chandra nakṣatra is going to be that. Whereas the Surya nakṣatra, Surya slowly shifting, maybe in the same nakṣatra. So Chandra's nakṣatra would change very fast. Surya may be still there. So this hunting between the two was an important thing. And what happens if you try to match the two sequences? That means make a thought experiment. I start with a pūrṇimā in a specific nakṣatra, say Maghā Nakṣatra. I go 1 full cycle. When I come to Maghā, it is not pūrṇimā. Okay, let me hold my breath and again see, go 1 more. Not pūrṇimā. After how many days, again the pūrṇimā comes in Maghā. That is called the beat period. The beat period between 29.5 and 27.3. This is an approximation I am putting up because the periods are slightly different, and that is going to be 1 year. It cannot be anything else. It is 366 days. And if you run from one solstice to other solstice and again come back, it is still 366. So, in other words, this 365 or 366, it is an estimation. It is not what MDS was mentioning. That Pingree says that they did not even know the length of the year correctly and all. Why should they? That was not their aim. They were doing something else and they did wonderfully well. Because mathematically this is what happens. You keep on observing, you get the Magha Pūrṇimā, the Mahamaham, the Mamangam. That was the most important thing from that period onwards. You have a Pūrṇimā in Maghā. Approximately after 1 year, you have a Pūrṇimā in the same month. But not every year it may happen. That is different. Because it's a small drift. So that drift keeps on building up. But you remember that in Maghā there was a full moon, so beautiful. That remains and you celebrate it. But if you call it Maghamasa, that is another, you call it Maghi, no problem, because Chandra is near Maghā Nakṣatra. So in the most ancient time, they had this, so they might have been doing their observations every year because it happened there only. But they quickly realized it cannot be called a month. So they had only the pakṣa, they had only Chaitri, Ashadi, Maghi, because in the Vedas it comes when I should do the Punaradheya of the Agni. It says that in the rainy season, on I think on the amāvāsyā day, the Surya and Chandra are together, you have to do that. That is obviously amāvāsyā day. How do you know that in the Varsha Ritu? And he says in the Kaushitiki Brahmana, you wait for the Ashadi. And after the Ashadi, the next thing which comes is going to be very nearly Punarvasu, there is the Punaradheya. Agni Punaradheya can be done there. What is Ashadi? It is the Ashadi Pūrṇimā. That is the rainy season. If the full moon is in the Ashada, sun will be opposite, on the other side. So it is near the Punarvasu or somewhere nearby. So they fixed up like that. It is the 2 children who are babies who are, playing. Sun and the moon, they're going round and round. That was sufficient to all this work. And this Nakṣatras came extra, handy to them. Now, if you continue with this, you will see that the shift also happens, this 366. Yeah, this is what I have, the ayanas and the short fall of 11 to 12 days, and the intercalation has to come into picture. And hence the solar calendar is better, where there is no intercalation. So if you are, there are obviously many people who are intelligent enough, why worry about this, all of this? I will take only the solar calendar for all agricultural purposes, Ritu purposes. You have the Dashapurna and all that for ritual purposes. You have the Nakṣatra for ritual purposes. For astrology, use that. For other things, we will use only this. Very good. And that is what they did, the solar, the Sauramana. Because it was matching with the Ritus exactly. That means with the Ayana. That you divided into 12. You have the Madhu Madhava, Shuchi Shukra. The Ritus are divided into 2. So you have the 12 masas. That is in the Dvadasha Chakram, it comes, Dvadasharam in the Asavamiya Sukta. That can be done. So this is what has come up This is the Ritu names, Madhu Madhava, Vasantika Ritu, Shukra Shuchi, Grishma Ritu. So they knew the Ritus, they fixed it up with the morning observation of the Nakṣatras, and this became formalized in the Parashara Tantra, Vṛddha Gārgīya and Archa Yajusha Jyotiṣa. This is the text of the Vedāṅga Jyotiṣa. So these are the important Vedāṅga Jyotiṣa texts. Don't be under the impression Lagadas is the only Vedāṅga Jyotiṣa. It's a wrong impression. Because 100 years back there was nothing else available, they called it Vedāṅga. It is Vedāṅga Jyotiṣa, no doubt. Now, the Vṛddha Gārgīya Jyotiṣa, I think I will continue after lunch because the same text has to continue. I will tell you this and how there are two layers. We get into historical issues, social issues, and very specific astrological questions which come up in Vṛddha Gārgīya. So I will leave it like this, and we will meet after lunch.